Okay, I'm so proud of myself for remembering to record. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Justine. We're super excited to have you on. The topic tonight brings a lot of questions, so I'm sure you'll be able to share some awesome knowledge with us. For everyone that's joining us tonight, thank you for spending part of your Wednesday night with us. I almost forgot what day it was. And we're super excited to be able to bring you this training with Justine, who does own her own company. Did you just recently change the name of your company?
Yeah, Just Fit You.
Okay, so it's Just Fit You, and Justine specializes in not just only the neurotyping, but you work a lot in gut health too as well, don't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which we'll touch a little bit on how they're kind of related. So.
Oh yeah, no, they're very much related, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just kind of turn the floor over to you and let you share with us about how, what is neurotyping? How does it work? And, how can they apply that?
Yeah. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit if that's okay.
No, please do.
A lot of this started, I got into coaching initially because, I went through a weight loss, like many of us, I went through a weight loss journey of my own. And I lost 25 pounds. I shared the whole journey. I've always loved health and fitness. So falling into coaching just like really helped with that. But looking back at it, the way I went about losing that weight was very difficult for me. The whole time, I was trying to work out a lot. I was trying to like do the most. And now looking at my neurotype, it makes sense why I was so hard. Whereas now kind of understanding how I can play into my neurotype, I am able to like maintain my results so much easier. So then as coaching, right, you see all these people and some people really get great. See all these people and some people, wait, sorry, I hear myself.
I heard that too. I think we got it.
Okay. Right. We know like some people get really great results. And then I was seeing some clients just like the program maybe wasn't really sticking and trying to find that disconnect of what's happening here. Why can some people stick to the plan much better than others? And I think that in a way, as coaches, we tend to attract people that are similar to us. I don't know if you feel that as well. And so they do very well. Maybe if you write a program kind of based on our own personal likes and dislikes versus when you get someone who maybe has a different personality than you, the program doesn't necessarily stick as well. So in terms of a coach, it's amazing because right off the bat, I have my clients take this neurotyping assessment and it just allows me to really understand them and understand their motivators and also understand how to write a program that they're going to be most likely to stick with. Because at the end of the day, that's what's really important, right? So within neurotyping, there are 5 main neurotypes. And basically, the main thing we're looking at is, it's measuring your level of different neurotransmitters. So it's looking at things like dopamine, glutamate, adrenaline, serotonin, GABA, taking that from some personality questions and kind of assessing how well do you handle stress? And for us as coaches, that's a big part of our responsibility, right? Like making sure that we give you a program that isn't just adding more stress onto your life. And from there, we can look at the 5 different types and creating a plan that fits for them. So starting with 1A, this is going to be someone who is very outgoing, very confident. They love to win and they will win at the expense of cheating if necessary. So these people do very well with more like high intensity explosive workouts. Then we go into 1B and they love to win as well. They have a little bit more empathy. They don't necessarily want to cheat to win the way 1A does, but still much more outgoing. And again, they still do enjoy like those higher explosive workouts. 1A and 1B are kind of similar. And along with workouts, what you'll also see is that they can do a little bit better in terms of more of a drastic calorie deficit. So they maybe do really well with like a Matador approach where you go 2 weeks of a very drastic deficit and then give them a week off. They like to see results really quickly. So that plays into their personality type to get them like, okay, let's like really get you on board seeing those results. And also, since they manage stress very well, they do a little bit better with low carb. So, as coaches, we know like some people do enjoy keto, some people do enjoy fasting. So that 1A, 1B, they're going to do a little bit better on that low carb, do much better with that fasting protocol. Then we have 2A and 2B. So 2A, I like to call them the chameleon. They really like to people please, and they do well with a little bit of everything, but nothing for too long. So they are someone where maybe we're doing more of like a calorie cycling approach. And then here with their workouts, maybe we're switching them up a little bit more often, where we're giving them just different things to do, looking at cardio, even where 1A, 1B is going to do really well with more of like a HIIT cardio. Coming into a 2A, they'll do any cardio, you just got to switch it up for them. And then moving to 2B, this is where we're kind of getting on the spectrum of not handling stress quite as well. So 2B is really your people who have a lot of that all or nothing mindset. And I know this is a lot of women that we work with, but along with that, what you'll see is they are much more likely to eat emotionally. And actually, based on their neurotransmitters, it really aligns because they are very sensitive to glutamate, which is, in foods in terms of MSG, right? So they get very, some people, if you look at moderation, right? Like some people, you can put potato chips in front of them and you're like, just have some in moderation. And some people can do that. And some people are like, no, I can't. Like, if I'm going to have a chip, I'm going to have the whole bag. That will tend to be that 2B a lot. And then moving into a type 3, which is actually, I am a type 3, really slow and steady plan. They just like to follow a plan, stick with it. And here, so what I was really doing is I was working out all the time. I was trying to do all this HIIT because that's what I saw influencers do. And my personality type is the total opposite. Right now, all I worry about is going on walks, steps. I train 3 to 4 times a week because I am higher stress. So I don't really recover enough to train more than that. And really kind of understanding that there's someone that's going to do well with that. I think as a coach, a lot of times we want to write that slow and steady plan and it works really well for them. Versus if you bring a 1B in and you're like, oh, you're not going to see results for a while, that's where you start to see it doesn't exactly work quite as well. Yeah, those are the types.
Yeah, no, this is some good information. For those of you that are here on the call with us, if you have questions, you can go ahead and pop them into the chat box or raise your hand and we'll let you unmute. In fact, we'd love for you to unmute and actually ask a question or to see your faces instead of just names on the screen. That's always more fun. I have Facebook pulled up finally, but I don't see it yet either. Juan, did you have a question?
I don't really have a question. I'm just processing all that information. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, so yeah, it took a while for the video to come on, but I wanted to say thank you for your time today, Justine and Clarissa, and putting on this a very informative session. I thought it was very interesting, and I was just trying to take it all in and wonder myself which category, which type I was. I felt like I was a part of probably 2 or 3 types, because I could see myself in one section or one type, and then I'm like, yeah, this is more me. And then you described another one and I was like, oh, this is so me too. So that might be one of the conundrums that I have in this whole physical fitness transition, lifestyle change journey that I'm on, is that I feel like I have, 2 hands in 5 little cookie jars. So if you can picture that right now, that's kind of like what's going on in my head. So trying to figure myself out at this stage of my life and tapping into the mindset and spirit of my youth, while acknowledging I have changed as a person, but it doesn't mean that I have to slow down. And that's the kind of thing that I was just thinking about.
Yeah, and I think that's important in terms of any type of like personality test, right? Is that we don't have to necessarily, I mean, there's only 5. So at some point we might have a little bit of both, but from a coach's perspective, it's like, let's at least start here. And it gives us a much clearer idea of what's possibly going to work for you versus, you know, I think you have, like, there are certain coaches who really love intermittent fasting. I don't do intermittent fasting. Like, I don't really suggest that. However, if I have a client who maybe it would work well for them, I can see that through the neurotyping versus like if my own blind biases would never really suggest that. So it's at least giving us kind of a starting point of like, hey, these things might work well for you. It's never a black and white. I do have a quiz that can be taken. So I am in the Facebook group. I can drop that in there if Clarissa wants, and you guys can kind of take the quiz and it'll give you a little bit of an answer. But yeah, I mean, like typically I am a type 3, but then my second one is a 1B, which people don't think that necessarily sounds similar, but a lot of the leadership qualities that kind of come into play, you'll see some different athleticism come in that have those similarities, even if 1B feels far from a 3 or, you know, 2A, 1A, there's still going to be some like things that cross over there.
Sounds good.
For sure. And it's correct me if I'm wrong, but like going through different like super stressful situations in life can also alter what the personality comes out as, right?
Yep, absolutely. And there's always human error, right? If we're not very self-aware, like we're not going to take a personality test very well. But in times of stress versus in times of happiness, you're going to kind of go from a different type. So
yeah. No, I actually experienced that last year because I was talking with Abby a lot. And so she's like, here, just do the quiz. So I did, and it came out, I think it was the 1B. And then I was going through a lot of that stress with my dad. And I was like, something's not right. So I took it again and it came out as a 3. And I was like, well, that's a lot different. And so, you know, we did have that conversation about, you know, it could be stress that was impacting, you know, just how I was seeing things and perceiving.
Yeah. And even just in the moment of something like, you know, when you're in stress, you can kind of really flow to that versus it doesn't even have to be like a huge month to month, kind of like in moments of stress versus in moments of happiness, you're going to act a little differently.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So then once you have that piece, that personality piece, the idea is to use that information to better utilize your training plan and even the nutrition plan so that it fits into your personality better. So like you mentioned, the intermittent fasting, that's something that's very hard for me to do. I couldn't do that, but some people might like it. So if we're telling you, hey, you have to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, at these times, and then have a snack, that could drive them, you know, crazy, and then they would not be as likely to adhere to the plan.
Yeah. And then the other thing that really comes up, you know, as coaches, I think everyone has their personal biases. And it's like, we kind of have an idea of where we're going to set protein, right? Like we know calories and we know protein. Some people like to set then macros at like higher carb versus higher fat. And with the neurotype, it can give us a better idea of someone who is a type 3. Maybe there we go higher carb for someone who is maybe a type 1B, that's where we maybe go higher fat. So utilizing carbs to help manage the stress and manage our cortisol levels can be really helpful through that as well. And just kind of like getting that little nutrition piece where it's just like those, like that little bit of detail that might make it a little bit easier for someone to achieve and also make them maybe understand how they could possibly feel a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, having a coach and utilizing those kind of tools is like super important because it's not something that you would necessarily think of on your own. And then you're likely to think of yourself as failing and then you fail on the plan. When instead, you know, a simple adjustment could have been made and, you know, saved you a lot of, well, stress and, you know, helped you succeed in what you actually want to accomplish.
Yeah. And then I know I mentioned I was going to hit on how this kind of affects gut health a little bit, but actually, so type 3s are just generally more prone to gut health issues. Again, higher stress. They usually have that. So you'll see that a lot. And I think what people don't realize as well is like, if you are having gut issues, that's probably also adding to anxiety issues that you're having. So many of our neurotransmitters are created in the gut. So making sure that we support these neurotransmitters that play into our neurotype is going to be really important, and making sure that you have a good, have a good attitude and feel good for all of this. And then I think also as a coach, it really helps us to help clients because, honestly, a 2B is going to be the most likely to kind of like ghost you because they're going to feel the worst about not doing everything correctly. So it's like, we can just get ahead of that a little bit and say like, hey, you don't have to be perfect. Like there's no judgments here. And understanding like what their big obstacle is going to be versus a 3, their big obstacle is usually they do really, really well. They stay on plan. And then one little thing in their life happens, and that can really throw them off. Like they don't have any sense of staying on plan from that. So as a coach, we can really kind of like keep our eye out for where we think a client might have a hurdle.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a super good point too. Yeah, and if you didn't have that support, you would be in either instance be very likely to bail off and then eventually have to start over again. So
yeah.
And I think with the coaching, it's super important to know, like, I know in your coaching and in what we do, we don't care if you mess up. You're humans, and we expect that actually. But having that transparency and letting us know gives us the information that we need so that we can make the proper adjustments and get you back on track. And we really don't care because it happens all the time. We even do that from time to time, and it's okay because we're not in this, to like win anything. We're in it for the long term so that we feel better. And as a byproduct, then, it changes our body composition, changes our mental capacity and abilities. And it's all just a really nice package, but it is definitely a long-term time investment in yourself.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to remember too is, I think when this topic of neurotyping comes up, at first, some people might think like, oh, it almost sounds a little gimmicky, but at the end of the day, it's still the same like fundamentals, right? It's still calories in, calories out. It's still taking care of yourself. It's like really just finding like those small little things that we can fine tune to understand why, why higher carbs works better for some people versus higher fat, even though we know both realistically will still get you the weight loss. It's like finding those little things that just, have a lot of variance there to make it easier for you.
Right, absolutely. And it is, it's super individualized. So I think that's why using that approach or a really, really good coach that's going to help you make those little adjustments is absolutely vital for success.
Yeah.
So as far as the gut health goes, it's obviously related to stress, and it's crazy. We've had these lives going on all week, and at the underneath of everything is always stress. Isn't that amazing?
Yep.
It's just
and
like,
I think even looking at, the way we're aligning workouts, right? Like looking at a 1B, they can have a more explosive, more high intensity workout because they handle their stress better. Versus looking at a 3, like I do very well. I used to always, anytime like box jumps were programmed for me, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like I would just skip it. And like, now it makes so much sense. Like, I'm like, just let me go through my workout. Versus, with high stress, I'm not recovering very well from a workout. So like having a little bit lower volume workout, I think people always think of working out as a stress reliever versus really realizing that it's also a stressor on our body. And then the same thing with how we're setting up calorie deficits. So again, that 1A, 1B, those are people that maybe can start off with like a 500 calorie deficit versus a type 3, really looking to more start off at like that 300 calorie deficit, like slower and steady there.
Yeah.
But always looking at how like everything relates back to the stress with it.
Yeah, it really does. And even it's important to take into consideration that the dieting is a stress in itself. So if you're trying to manage stress, that's something else to take into consideration.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, all right. Does anyone here have any more questions? One had that really good one. I'm going to check Facebook. We have people watching on Facebook, but no questions. So if you're on Facebook and you have a question, go ahead and post it in the chat. We can see that. Nothing else here.
I have a question.
Another question.
Yeah. Okay.
So we discussed a little bit about the different neurotypes with regards to, maybe some of those in one type fall into me, right? But then I also fall into another type. How's it determined what true type someone is if someone feels like they're part of several different types?
So honestly, I would say the best thing to do here is to take a quiz. It's 100 questions, and someone much more qualified in personality tests has made this. I didn't necessarily create the quiz, but it uses the same kind of the same things if you took like the Myers-Briggs, right? Where it's going to put you into a category just based on your answers there. And then you're just going to get, okay, this is first, second, third, which ones rank the highest for you? And you'll see a little bit more where to start, if that makes sense. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I think someone here just asked for the quiz too. So if you want to put that into under the video in the group, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'll drop the link for that.
Awesome. I'm not seeing any other questions. There are quite a few people on Facebook though, so that's nice. Let's see, does anyone here have anything else they wanted to ask tonight?
After we take the quiz, then what happens?
So you'll get a little, at the end of the quiz, it'll give you like a brief little thing, but if you want to email, you'll get an email of your type. If you want to respond to that email, I have a full PDF that will kind of break down as well, a little bit more information for you. Excellent. Appreciate it.
Okay, good questions. All right, and then everyone that's here, I don't know if some of you were here last night, some of you were not, but we are running a coaching scholarship in conjunction with our 4-day training. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link for that inside of the chat here, and then I'll make sure it gets over to Facebook too. So go ahead and take a minute to fill that out. The coaching scholarship is for 6 months of one-on-one coaching with us. It includes everything that we do with our clients. So you're getting the one-to-one support. You have access to all of our coaches. You get access to our training platform, and then we have another library of digital resources for you to use as well as a special group and extra one-on-one time with our whole team. So that's for 6 months, and I just dropped the link into the chat so you can fill that out. We are closing registration on that Thursday night at midnight, so don't wait too long. But otherwise, I think that the information tonight was fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us tonight for that, Justine. Doesn't look like we have any more questions. Yeah, on Facebook, they just wanted to know when the quiz is available. So
Perfect.
we'll make sure that gets posted for you guys. It sounds super interesting, right? I think it's fun to find out what your personality is.
I love it. And I think things like the Enneagram right now are so popular as well. And just understanding yourself a little bit better is always a good thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, Justine. And thank you everyone that joined us for spending part of your Wednesday night with us. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Good information. Lots of people joined us. So it's good. Successful night. All right. Don't forget to fill out the form here for the scholarship, and then we'll get the other one up inside the group for you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.